Funny how people unsubscribe from your life without notice. One day they swear forever, the next they're gone. But hey, if you're here, hit subscribe. It's free, unlike loyalty. I had always believed my marriage was built on trust, on love, on an unshakable foundation. My wife, let's call her M, and I had been together for 6 years, married for 4. We were that couple, best friends, partners in crime, laughing at inside jokes and navigating life's little challenges together. But then the shift happened. At first, it was subtle, the kind of thing you wouldn't notice unless you were paying close attention. M started carrying her phone everywhere, even when just stepping into the kitchen or folding laundry. Before, she'd leave it lying on the coffee table for hours without a care. One evening I joked, "What, are you running a secret spy ring now?" She chuckled, brushing it off. "No, work's just been emailing me a lot." Seemed innocent enough. Until a few days later when she set a password on her phone for the first time. That caught me off guard. When I casually asked why, she muttered something about security and hackers. I let it go. I wasn't about to be that husband, paranoid over nothing. But then the call started. She would step out of the room whenever her phone rang. "Oh, let me just grab this real quick," she'd say before vanishing to the bedroom or outside onto the porch. If I asked who it was, the answer was always the same, just a friend from work. Then came the habit I didn't even know was a thing, keeping her phone face down on every surface. I only noticed because one evening I reached to hand her something, and she quickly moved her phone out of the way. It was such a small thing, blink and you'd miss it. But I didn't. And then there was the distance. Our conversations, once effortless, now felt strained, like I was pulling teeth. If I brought up the future, our anniversary plans, saving for a new car, she'd nod absent-mindedly. "Yeah, we'll see." Then she'd change the subject. The moment everything clicked into place was on a random Wednesday. She told me she was meeting a friend for coffee after work, normal enough. But as fate would have it, I happened to be running errands in the same area. I thought surprising her would be a sweet gesture. When I arrived, she wasn't with her friend. She stood outside the cafe, pacing back and forth, phone pressed to her ear. Her expression was tense, her voice hushed yet urgent. I stayed in my car watching, listening. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but some words drifted through the air. "It's almost ready, starting fresh soon." My stomach clenched. This wasn't small talk. This wasn't a casual conversation with a coworker. It felt bigger, like a plan that didn't include me. That night when she came home, I asked, "How was coffee?" She launched into an elaborate story about her friend complaining about her boyfriend. She had every detail prepared, a script so well rehearsed that it made my skin crawl. I just stared at her. And then, as if sensing my unease, she casually dropped another bombshell. "Hey, don't you think we should put all our important information in one place? Just in case? Like account info, passwords, documents, that kind of thing?" I forced a smile. "Why?" She shrugged. "It's just smart, isn't it? What if something happens to one of us? Or what if we need to make a big financial decision quickly?" On the surface, her argument made sense. But her tone, so deliberate, so carefully constructed, sent every alarm in my body blaring. Why now? We'd always handled our finances separately. We'd never talked about preparing for emergencies before. That night, as she slept soundly beside me, my mind raced. The phone calls. The secrecy. The cafe conversation. And now, this sudden interest in our finances? It wasn't paranoia anymore. Something was coming. And I needed to be ready. We were in the kitchen. I was making a sandwich, slicing through the bread with slow, deliberate strokes, when she spoke. "Have you thought more about organizing the bank stuff? Like, do you know where all the account details are?" I froze, the knife hovering midair. Slowly I turned to face her. "Okay, what's going on?" My voice was light, casual even, but there was an edge to it. "You've been bringing up finances a lot lately. Is there something we need to talk about?" She finally looked up from her phone, eyes widening just slightly as if caught off guard. Then just as quickly she masked it. "No, nothing's wrong," she said too quickly, forcing a smile. "I just think it's important, that's all. For emergencies." "Emergencies?" I leaned against the counter, watching her carefully. "Emergencies like what?" She shrugged, her expression unreadable. "I don't know. Just life stuff. It's not a big deal, I promise. I just think it's something we should get on top of." Vague. Too vague. I nodded slowly, letting it go, for now. But I knew deep down that this wasn't just some casual suggestion. She was hiding something. I just didn't know what. A chilling discovery. The next day, while she was at work, I decided I couldn't just sit with my suspicions anymore. I needed answers. Logging into our joint bank account, I scrolled through the transactions. At first, everything seemed normal. Bills, groceries, the usual. Then I saw it. Small, seemingly insignificant withdrawals. Not large enough to raise immediate alarms, but just enough to be deliberate. A few hundred here, a couple of transfers there. But they weren't for any of our usual expenses. She was moving money. The question was, why? A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. I considered confronting her right away, but something held me back. If I was wrong, I'd sound paranoid. If I was right, I had to be careful. I needed advice. A call for help. I picked up the phone and called someone I trusted, an old college friend who also happened to be a lawyer. I laid out everything. The mere act of preparing for this felt like conceding defeat, as if I was officially abandoning the trust we had spent years building. That evening, while she was out, I sat at my desk, my hands trembling as I opened my laptop. Each click felt heavier than the last. Bank accounts, investment portfolios, property deeds. With every document I reviewed, a part of me wanted to stop, to push the thoughts away and pretend this wasn't happening. But another voice, colder and far more rational, reminded me, this isn't sabotage. This is survival. I wasn't trying to hurt her. But the gnawing dread in my gut told me that if I didn't act now, I would regret it. I compiled a list of everything I could move, how to shift assets without raising suspicion. Each keystroke added to the crushing weight on my chest. How had it come to this? How had I gone from trusting my wife completely to playing defense against the woman I thought would always have my back? Then I picked up the phone. I called my mother. I need you to hold on to some things for me for a while, I told her, keeping my voice even. It's nothing bad, just something I need to do to protect myself, just in case. A silence stretched between us before she spoke, her voice laced with concern. Are you okay? I lied. Yeah, just a precaution. Nothing to worry about. She didn't press, but I could hear the hesitation in her voice when she finally said, Of course, sweetheart. Whatever you need. When I hung up, I exhaled shakily. I hated dragging her into this. But knowing she had my back gave me the steadiness I needed. By the time Emma came home, it had already begun. I had transferred the majority of my assets, our savings, my investments, even the house, into my mother's name. Our joint account still had enough to keep up appearances, but the rest? Locked down. She didn't notice. She walked in, kissed my cheek, and asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I forced a smile. I pretended everything was fine. Inside, I was unraveling. The calm before the storm. Over the next 3 days, I maintained our usual routine. Nothing out of the ordinary. No sudden changes. She, on the other hand, seemed lighter. Almost happier. Even unusually affectionate at times. It should have reassured me. Instead, it only deepened my suspicion. If she had been planning something, she was doing an excellent job of hiding it. But then something strange happened. She never mentioned finances again. Not even once. At first, I thought I had misread everything, that maybe I had overreacted. But then I realized something chilling. She wasn't just dropping the subject. She was avoiding it. Almost like she was afraid to bring it up after I had pressed her last time. And then there was the way she watched me. Subtle glances. Quick, assessing looks when she thought I wasn't paying attention. And every time I caught her, she would immediately divert her focus. Her phone, the TV, a book, anything but me. She was waiting for me to bring it up. Testing the waters. She was playing a game. And I wasn't going to let her win. The moment of truth. 2 weeks passed. Everything felt normal. Too normal. She was warm again, engaging in conversations about work, dinner plans, things she had avoided for months. For a moment I started to wonder, had I been wrong? Was this just stress? A misunderstanding? Was I reading too much into nothing? And then, on a random Friday night, she sat me down on the couch, turned off the TV and said, "We need to talk." My stomach plummeted. I knew what she was about to say before the words even left her lips. "I think we should get a divorce." Her voice was calm. Too calm. Not angry. Not emotional. Cold. Like she was discussing the weather. I stared at her, my heart hammering in my chest, struggling to form words. And then she continued, listing off reasons. She needed space, wanted to find herself, felt like she had lost her identity in the marriage. Empty, rehearsed lines. But then she said something else. Something that cut deeper than anything else. "You know, I've made a lot of sacrifices for you over the years, and I don't think you really appreciate them. I deserve more." There it was. The mask slipping. This wasn't just about leaving. This was about taking. The way she said it, so calm, so calculated, made it clear. This wasn't just about wanting out. This was about taking. She framed it like I owed her something, as if our entire marriage had been one long debt she was finally cashing in. As I sat there, absorbing the weight of her words, another question formed in my mind. Why now? And then she said something that made everything click into place. A friend of mine has been helping me see things more clearly. She didn't look at me when she said it. A friend. I stayed still, letting her talk, but my mind was already racing. Who was this friend? And why were they so involved in my marriage? The way she phrased it, it wasn't casual. It was deliberate. Someone had been whispering in her ear, building her up, convincing her that leaving me wasn't just a decision but a strategy. And the more she spoke about how she deserved more for her sacrifices, the more my skepticism grew. Sacrifices? She had been happy with me. Or so she claimed. I worked hard to give her the life she wanted. I sacrificed too. When she asked to move closer to her job, I agreed, even though it added an extra hour to my commute. When she wanted that expensive yoga retreat, I made sure we budgeted for it, even giving up a vacation I had been looking forward to so she could go. When she changed careers, twice, I supported her, telling her it was okay to take the risk because I wanted her to be happy. I wasn't a distant, uninvolved husband. I showed up. I listened. I planned date nights when she said she felt stuck in a rut. I remembered the little things she loved. I wasn't perfect, but I tried. And now she was rewriting our entire history to fit her new narrative. I didn't push back. Instead, I nodded and said something neutral. If that's how you feel, I guess we should figure out the next steps. She looked surprised that I wasn't arguing, that I wasn't begging her to stay. But I didn't care, because my mind had already shifted. I needed to know who or what had caused this sudden, calculated change in her behavior. She didn't just wake up one morning and decide to leave. This was bigger. And I wasn't going to let it blindside me any more than it already had. The divorce papers and the realization. She moved into her own apartment that weekend. By Monday, I had the divorce papers in my hands. And let me tell you, this wasn't just a separation. It was a hit job. She wanted everything. Half the house. My savings. My assets. Even the car. And then there were the ambiguous spousal support clauses. Nonsensical, given that she had a high salary of her own. This wasn't just about walking away. She was expecting me to roll over and give her everything I had worked for. At first, I thought it was bitterness. But then I read through the documents again. The phrasing. The structure. The specific, aggressive demands. This wasn't her doing. Someone was guiding her through this. Someone who knew exactly how to gut me financially. So I started digging. I couldn't just ask her who had been in her ear. I had to be smarter than that. Following the trail. I started with her social media. She hadn't blocked me. And while she didn't post much, I went through her tagged photos and comments, looking for anything out of the ordinary. And that's when I noticed a pattern. One name kept appearing. Jake. He wasn't overt, just subtle enough to blend in. A like here, a supportive comment there. You've got this. Innocuous to most. But not to me. I clicked his profile. It was public. At first glance, he seemed ordinary, a 30-something marketing professional. But then, as I scrolled, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A photo of him at the exact same cafe where I had seen her weeks before, the same day I had overheard her talking about starting fresh. And then, even worse, a selfie taken inside what looked like her new apartment. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Connecting the dots. I couldn't confront her outright. Not yet. I needed more. So I reached out to one of our mutual friends, Lisa. She and Emma had been close for years. I kept the conversation light at first, casually asking if she had talked to Emma recently, if she had noticed anything off. Her reaction was immediate. I don't know anything about that, she said too quickly. She shut down the conversation. Almost as if she didn't want to get involved. That only made me more suspicious. So I tried again with another friend, Emily. At first, she was hesitant, responding vaguely. But when I pressed her, she abruptly ended the call. That should have been the end of it. But then minutes later, my phone rang. Emily. Her voice was quiet, nervous. I just need to make sure what I say doesn't come back to me. I reassured her. Long silence. And then she dropped the bombshell. She's been spending a lot of time with a guy named Jake. They met at work. And from what I've heard, he's the one advising her on the divorce. Hearing his name out loud was like having the final puzzle piece snap into place. This wasn't about space. This wasn't about finding herself. There was someone else in the picture. And he wasn't just influencing her decisions, he was orchestrating them. And I was going to find out why. That Saturday, I parked a block away from her new apartment, waiting. I needed confirmation. Not of my suspicions, I already knew, but of the reality I had been forced to accept. A few hours later she stepped out of the building. And she wasn't alone. Jake. They didn't hold hands. No obvious displays of affection. But the way they walked together, leaning in close, speaking in hushed voices, it was enough. They got into his car and drove off, leaving me staring at the empty space where they had stood. I didn't follow them. I didn't need to. At that moment I understood. She hadn't just fallen out of love with me. She had been preparing to leave. With him. And suddenly everything made sense. The emotional distance. The odd money questions. The sudden, forceful demands in the divorce papers. This wasn't just a separation. It was a heist. She wasn't just walking away. She was trying to strip me of everything before she left. And she had no idea what I had planned for her. The mediation. The first mediation session felt suffocating the moment we stepped in. Her lawyer came in carrying a binder so thick it looked like he was preparing to take down a Fortune 500 company. He barely greeted us before launching into her list of demands, spouting them off as if they were entirely reasonable. Half the house. Half the money. The car. My assets. And even some ambiguous spousal support nonsense, despite the fact that she made more than enough on her own. I didn't flinch. I let him talk, nodding slightly as if I were considering every word. But I wasn't. I was waiting. And then, finally, my lawyer leaned forward and slid a stack of documents across the table. His voice was calm. Measured. Before we proceed, I think it's important for everyone to review these. Her lawyer took the papers, skimming through them. At first, his face was unreadable. Then his brows furrowed. His confident posture stiffened. His fingers tightened around the pages as he flipped through them faster, his frown deepening. "What is this?" he finally asked, his voice laced with confusion. My lawyer smiled slightly. "These documents show the transfer of all major assets into a trust under my client's mother's name," he said smoothly. "The transfers were completed several weeks before the divorce filing. The trust is fully legal and irrevocable." Silence. Complete. Deafening. Silence. Her lawyer turned to her, a look of disbelief flickering across his face. "You didn't mention this," he said flatly. She snatched the papers from his hands, flipping through them with shaking fingers. Her face paled. This can't be real," she whispered. But it was. Notarized signatures. Legally binding transfers. Ironclad dates. She turned to me, her expression morphing from shock to rage. "You planned this?" she muttered, her voice low, deadly. "You knew I was going to file, and you set this up to screw me over?" I didn't respond. I just sat there, letting her connect the dots on her own. Her lawyer, looking thoroughly blindsided, cleared his throat. "We'll need to reassess our strategy," he said stiffly. Translation? They had no more moves left. When the meeting ended, I walked out of the conference room without a word. But she followed me. And in the hallway she grabbed my arm. Her eyes burned with fury, but underneath it I saw something else. Desperation. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You're going to regret this." I met her gaze, my voice steady. "I already regret trusting you," I said. "That's the only regret I have." Then I walked away. The meltdown. I expected backlash. But I underestimated just how fast she would unravel. By that night the calls started. Endless calls. At first, her messages were controlled. "I think we just need to talk. I know this got messy, but we can fix it." When I didn't answer, the tone changed. By the next day, the voicemails alternated between sobbing and screaming. One message was her crying, whispering about how she had made a mistake. The next, fury. Accusations. "You're so fucking selfish. You did this to punish me. I gave you everything and this is how you repay me?" Each call, each message was more erratic than the last. My lawyer advised me not to respond. I had no intention of doing so anyway, because I had already won. And she knew it. The fallout. I was finished playing her games. But she wasn't. When the calls and texts failed, she turned to something new, stories. Mutual friends started reaching out, confused, telling me she was claiming the divorce was all a hoax. A prank. "We were just testing each other," she had told them. It was all blown out of proportion. It was ridiculous. Who would believe something like that? The cracks in her story showed almost immediately. Friends started asking simple questions. Questions she couldn't answer. If this was a prank, why file real legal paperwork? Why hire a lawyer and demand half of everything? She floundered. And when people didn't instantly accept the hoax narrative, she pivoted. It wasn't a prank anymore. Now it was a test. "I wanted to see how strong our marriage really was," she said. But his reaction, it was too much. He betrayed me. Now I was the villain. And some people actually believed her. I started getting strange emails and messages from old acquaintances. Wow, I didn't realize things were so rough for her. Even her brother lashed out. You should have just talked it out instead of being so drastic. It was annoying. But I knew the truth would come out. And it did because of Matt. The messages. Matt wasn't my best friend, but we had always gotten along. A few weeks after the mediation he messaged me. I have something you need to see. When we met he pulled out his phone and handed it to me. Text messages. Between her and Jake. I frowned. How did you even get these? Matt sighed. Jake and I have a mutual friend. He heard them talking. And when he realized what was really going on he felt guilty. So, he took screenshots. Sent them to me. I scrolled. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just angry venting. It wasn't an emotional response to a failing marriage. It was strategy. Cold. Calculated. Planned. Her message. Once the settlement's done, we'll have everything we need. I just need him to agree to the terms. Jake's response. Don't back down. Make him feel guilty if you have to. He owes you. We'll start fresh once you've got the money. I felt sick. This wasn't just her moving on. This wasn't just betrayal. This was manipulation. And Jake? He wasn't just supporting her, he was coaching her. Matt shook his head. This guy's been playing both sides. Hyping her up to take you for everything while making her believe he'd be there after. He exhaled sharply. I thought you should know. You don't deserve this, man. I nodded. Thanks. When Matt left, I sat there staring at my phone. Everything made sense now. The sudden distance. Her fixation with our finances. The aggressive demands. She wasn't just trying to leave me. She was building a life with him, using my money to do it. The public unraveling. Matt shared the text with a few friends. And they spread fast. The reaction was immediate. People who had believed her, or at least stayed neutral, started distancing themselves. Even her closest allies stopped defending her. The whispers turned into avoidance. The invitations stopped. The sympathizers disappeared. And then Jake? He vanished. As soon as things started falling apart, he was gone. I wouldn't be surprised if he had been using her the whole time, feeding her fantasies of a fresh start while knowing she was the one taking the risk. But once it became clear she wasn't walking away with anything, he was out. No more texts. No more support. Just gone. Without Jake in her corner, her confidence collapsed. The calls and texts continued, but now they were different. No more accusations. No more entitlement. Just desperation. Can we just talk? Please? I'll do anything to fix this. Another voicemail. You don't have to forgive me, but can't we just settle this and move on? I'll drop everything if you just talk to me. I didn't respond. I couldn't. It was too late. She had already lost. The final chapter. As time passed, even the last few people who had stood by her began to drift away. The lies had crumbled. The manipulation was exposed. She was left alone, holding the weight of her own choices. One day her brother reached out to me. I'm sorry. At first I didn't understand. For what? I asked. For believing her. His voice was heavy with regret. I didn't know what she was doing to you. I should have never taken her word for it. I didn't hold it against him. People believe what they want to believe, until the truth becomes undeniable. A fresh start. As for me, I got everything I fought for. The house. My savings. But most importantly, peace of mind. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up feeling like I was walking on eggshells. I didn't feel manipulated. I didn't feel betrayed. I felt free. My mother, as always, was my rock. She arrived at my house with buckets of paint, new furniture ideas, and a list of ways to make this space mine again. And piece by piece I did just that. New beginnings aren't about forgetting the past. They're about choosing not to let it define you. She is a chapter in my story, but she is not the whole book. And now, the rest of the pages? They're mine to write. Does this story resonate with you? Have you ever trusted someone only to realize they were using you? Have you ever been made to feel like you were the villain, when you were just defending yourself? If this story spoke to you, let us know in the comments. What did you take away from it? And if you believe in standing up for yourself, in choosing peace over manipulation, then like, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't anger. It's moving on.